As Steve generously said, I'm Philip Bromley, CEO, co-founder of VIRUN NutraBIOsciences. A little bit about VIRUN. VIRUN's a biotechnology company. We were founded in 2003. We initially were a drug company. Our company is actually an acronym for Virus Immune. The reason why our company is an acronym for Virus Immune, VIRUN, is because our initial drug technology was surrounded around drug delivery, which was binding transferrin, lactoferrin to different proteins, peptides, drugs, of which we still utilize today. But that led into a second technology that we dubbed ESOLVE, which is a natural vitamin E encapsulator. It also is a drug delivery agent, but more so used in the food and beverage industry. Lastly, we have a bicarbonate technology that utilizes a clean label claim way of standardizing certain phytochemicals and oils and nonpolar compounds. So ESOLVE's our natural-derived amphiphilic encapsulator. Amphiphilic means it's both oil and water soluble. Our ESOLVE has something that's called neutral hydrolipophilic balance, which means it's right in between something that's oil soluble and something that's water soluble. So we can take a molecular compound derived naturally from vitamin E, and we can manipulate it so it can take oil ingredients and combine them with water ingredients, dissolve completely clear in water, be stable, and have clean label claim of vitamin E, as opposed to detergents, sodium lauryl sulfate, and things such as that. Probably what ESOLVE is most known for is our omega water. It's a clear dissolving omega-3 EPA DHA, and it's being used in functional drinks, functional waters, beverages that want to have a DHA claim, cognitive, heart health, and it's shelf stable, so it doesn't taste fishy. Here's a picture left. This is just one example. This is 165 milligrams EPA DHA. It's completely clear. There's no detection of EPA DHA other than chemical analysis or something. And we can standardize it to contain up to 1,500 milligrams EPA DHA in a beverage. Again, clean label claim, EPA DHA with vitamin E as the encapsulator. So basically, we can take this and turn it into this, or this, in order to get, that's supposed to be a drum roll, this, the holy grail of functional beverages. So in essence, you can add functional ingredients with science-supported claims that lend credibility and efficacy. What was once only available in pill form, now you can add to your favorite functional beverage or food product. So we can encapsulate omega-3 EPA DHA. That's what we're most known for, our brand Omega Water. But we can also apply this encapsulation technology to other phytochemicals that are water insoluble. So a lot of beverages today, they use B vitamins and vitamin C, certain herbal extracts, and different things that we all associate with health claims in beverage products. But what is not common are nonpolar compounds in these same functional food beverage applications. So it's just coincidental that some of these nonpolar or water-insoluble compounds are associated with much more aggressive health claims, omega-3 EPA DHA being one of them. These are ingredients that, in some cases, are prescribed by doctors for heart health or cardiovascular, cognitive, different things like that. So we focus our technology on combining and being able to fortify these ingredients into food beverage applications to increase health claims and differentiate from what currently we see on store shelves. So, for example, we have applied our ingredient, our ESOLVE, with resveratrol. Resveratrol is a natural wine antioxidant, and it's been associated with helping regulate blood sugar levels. Also, phosphatidylserine and DHA. There's a recent published report by Enzymotech last year that the combination of the two has been shown to improve brain health and support cognitive health. Astaxanthin is kind of like an up-and-coming super carotenoid. So it takes the place of beta-carotene, lycopene, lutein. It's the strongest carotenoid that's yet to be found. It first gained traction about 2 years ago when it was on Dr. Oz, and Dr. Oz said, hey, this stuff's great. So then everybody started buying it and on it right now. And lastly, I mentioned phytosterols. Phytosterols are used to help support cardiovascular claims. And it's not seen in many product applications other than maybe orange juice, but you don't see it in sports drinks. So we're taking it, adding it to sports drinks like that are clear and shelf stable. So anyway, one thing I want to touch base on, which is what I gave the presentation on earlier today, was combining the R&D that we do and explaining how we see lack of innovation today. So the concept is how commodity economics killed innovation, focused in the beverage and food industry, influenced by biotechnology. So what is commodity economics? For the purposes of this presentation, commodity economics is basically explaining how businesses today monopolize and capitalize based on acquisition and mergers, as opposed to doing internal research themselves, R&D, in order to increase sales revenue within the company. So once we've seen companies do R&D, come out with new brands, and market these brands to the consumer, we're seeing less of that. More of the larger companies are depending on outside third-party companies to develop these brands, and then they're waiting till they become, say, a threat, and then they go acquire the brand or, in some cases, merge with other brands in order to increase sales revenue. So commodity economics is contributed by 3 different factors. One being it starts with education, lack of funding, no diverse learning. Second, funding for R&D has been dwindling. And lastly, tighter FDA regulations. And when I say tighter FDA regulations, more so I'm associating that with patent regulation, IP regulation with USPTO and clinical studies, drug approval, things such as that. So we have officially entered the future of the robotic society, where opportunity is regulated by monopolies and government. Lack of funding for education. According to the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities, lack of funding to schools has created budget cuts that have diminished the arts and music from schools. And as Albert Einstein once said, did I skip that? Oh, here we go. The greatest scientists are artists as well. Imagination is more important than knowledge. So what we used to focus on in schools are not so much focused on today. The fundamentals of creativity and imagination came from arts, music, and a combination of that with science, math, and even sports somehow mixed in that has been shown to help stimulate imagination and creativity. In today's society, the question is, when did mathematics become the sought-after contributor to creativity? So in today's world, I know I have 2 kids at home, the focus with the new Common Core established in schools, they focus the budget cuts with art, music. We're seeing more of a focus, a trend toward mathematics being the sole contributor to creativity. I give an example here. When I was a kid, I used to play with Crayola crayons and use Lincoln Logs and play with Legos. But today, our kids don't have time to do such things. So they're too busy with their homework and mathematics primarily. Another commodity economics contributor, lack of R&D funding for pharma and biotech. So from this graph, you can see a comparison between federal R&D budget that coincides with share of gross domestic profit. What's interesting about this graph, and you saw this, what's interesting about this graph, you see a connection between the gross profit demographic with that of cuts in R&D budgets from the U.S. government. And the question remains, so which ignited which? So from the graph, you see it's pretty close. You can't tell which came first. Was it the government budget for R&D, or was it lack of innovation? So it's the whole cliche of what came first, the chicken or the egg. But we're definitely seeing less innovation, less patents being published, less creativity, At the same time, we're seeing less money spent on R&D from the U.S. government. So patent regulations have increased, more difficult to get patent approval, more restrictions, and I know there's some, we were talking about robotics, medical diagnostics. You're seeing more rigorous drop in medical diagnostic patent approval. There's less novel drug patents, compounds, you name it. So patents inevitably are more difficult than ever to get approved. And then we saw the trend continue. Here you see over the years more R&D budget cuts toward innovation, and with thalidomide, there was regulations that caused that drug to be released like 4 years after it was initially scheduled to be released. New HIV drugs were being regulated, not getting approved. And so what was once a tree of money has turned into a tree with no money. Hence, sourcing for freshly squeezed ideas were few and far between. So the hammer placed on innovation in the form of funding for R&D, regulations, and education paved the way toward commodity economics. So no creativity meant that R&D needed to be replaced with another means of revenue in this new millennium. And that is commodity economics. I love this picture because it kind of displays the whole concept right there. You see just all the large major corporations gobbling up the small competitors in order to own that space and reduce competition, but inevitably you see there's less companies out there competing, less innovation, less creativity being dominated by monopoly. So again, here's another example about pharma. Pharma, we saw less innovation, there's less patents getting approved, less R&D spent, less budget from the U.S. government toward R&D. So what we saw was drug companies are starting to invest in generic drugs now. And without having new drugs come to market, you have generic drugs coming out competing. So the drug companies had nothing else but to invest in generic drugs. So here, Pfizer bets $15 billion. I give the example, just as with rock and roll, patents begin to expire. So it begins the generic drug era. But with that became questions with FTC and anti-competition. So there's been concerns with FTC. FTC's been getting involved in some of these mergers and acquisitions with drug companies and generic drugs. And here's an example. Sun Pharma becomes the 5th largest generic drug company with their merger with Ranbaxy. Another one, this is more recent, Abbott, and their purchase of Piramal Generics unit for $3.72 billion. And so that was an example of pharma, but also we saw the same thing in the beverage industry. So I don't want to go into any detail with this, but I think the trend started in 2000 when PepsiCo made an investment into Quaker in order to acquire Gatorade. They bought Quaker for $370 million, and they became the leader in the sports hydration market. From there, you saw PepsiCo invest in Sobe. Coca-Cola acquired Adwala in 2001, and the trend continued in 2006, 2007. Cadbury Schweppes purchased Dr. Pepper Snapple Group, 7-Up Bottling Company. 2007, Coca-Cola made their huge acquisition of Glacier Vitamin Water for $4.1 billion, and that really transpired into the functional beverage market, which in 2009, Coca-Cola Company began investing in Zico One. PepsiCo, they saw competition in this market, so they went and invested. They took a majority stake in the Zico One competitor, One. The Zico One, Coca-Cola was, yeah, Zico One. It's confusing. They both have one in it. Anyway, so 2010 took majority stake in One. And another example is 2014, Hormel Foods' recent acquisition of Muscle Milk and Cytosport, which we actually have joint patent with Hormel Foods, and they're one of they private label our technology under their Fusions brand. And so the question remains, with all the acquisitions, mergers, what do we do about creativity? How do we jumpstart innovation, in particular with pharmaceuticals and, in our instance, the food beverage industry? So that's where we come in, VIRUN, NutraBio, the rebirth of biotechnology. So VIRUN has been more recently labeled as the Google of the food and beverage industry. That's supposed to look like Google, by the way. I don't know. So VIRUN, we go against the grain. We're different. So R&D companies are being, so it's not only the mergers and acquisitions of brands, but we're seeing mergers and acquisitions of companies who are innovative and creative. So last year, Wild Flavors was acquired by ADM for $2.1 billion. Year before that, Fortitech was purchased by DSM. So my point here is so it's not just the brands that were acquired, merged, but also companies like us who develop new product brands with existing raw materials. Those became few and far between. So we're here to step into the gap. We've kind of leveled up, and we're the next being looked at as far as like development company, innovation companies. We even have beer. Dr. Jekyll's just went into Whole Foods late last year, and I think we're in 44 foods for exclusivity of our water-soluble technology, clean label claim, in beer. So they put omega-3 in beer. It's called bio beer. It's healthy beer. I mean, what's better than that? Got curcumin. What else? Our resveratrol's in there. We also, they have an India Pale Ale, and we nano-encapsulated clove oil, ginger oil, and cinnamon oil. And so they add that during their brewing process, and it gives a very a less bitter India Pale Ale taste, but with a hint of ginger, clove, and cinnamon. And because of that, and these different technologies and flavor enhancers that we were able to add to the beer, use our encapsulation technologies with water-insoluble compounds. They actually won a gold medal at the Los Angeles beer competition last week, and a silver medal. So place your order. We have a fast food drive-through approach. At VIRUN, one thing that's happened in the past like 5 years is companies are very dependent on us to develop a finished product very quickly. We like to associate ourselves with that show Mad Men, if you watch it. We're able to take a concept. People come to us. They say they want a stick-pack powder. They want a 2-ounce shot. They want a beverage. They want to put 5 grams of protein in a 1-gram serving size, which is impossible, by the way. But anyway, they give us challenging projects. We develop them fast. In some cases, 2 or 3 days. We have the whole product concept done, delivered. We have a co-packing facility in Riverside now that we're partnering up with, and we're actually going to invest into a larger facility where we're all going to be under one roof. So we can produce the raw material, powder, liquid, spray-dried powder, encapsulation technology, smoothie, and we have IP patents. We have over 40 patents involved in these encapsulation technologies. But more so than that, we now have the capability of producing the finished product for the customer. And companies come to us, and we supply them with a whole finished product concept, and we do it fast, efficiently, and companies have become very reliant on that. So with Acme-style commodity economics, there are no shortcuts. Join VIRUN in our quest to fight commodity economics and proliferate innovation. We are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams. VIRUN. There it goes for you. Thank you.